This overseas assignment is confidential and classified. You might not return for years, nor be able to contact your family. Are you certain your husband knows? Otherwise, if he comes looking for you later, we won't be able to disclose your whereabouts due to the agreement." "Sure." Wanda took the documents from the staff member's hand. Under their hesitant gaze, she offered reassurance. "My husband and I are getting divorced. In 10 days, I'll depart as scheduled." What she wanted was for them not to reveal her whereabouts. She wanted Andy to never find her again. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now, the story begins. Two staff members passing by nearby seemed to have overheard some earth-shattering gossip. "Did I hear that right? Mrs. Barron actually said she's divorcing her husband, Mr. Andy is famously known in Haicheng for cherishing his wife like his own life. Would he ever agree to this?" "Exactly. I still remember that sensational online confession ceremony from back then, and when Mrs. Barron had that accident, the hospital had just issued a critical condition notice when Mr. Andy immediately slit his wrist intending to follow her in death. If not for his assistant discovering it early, they would have been separated by life and death already. I'd rather believe my ears were playing tricks on me than believe they'd get divorced." Words like these, Wanda had heard too many times. Everyone thought Andy was madly in love with her. Had Wanda not received those videos, she would have gone to her grave firmly believing in Andy's sincerity. Reality always bites harder than imagination. 6 months ago, she received an anonymous email that Andy, whom outsiders saw as utterly devoted to his wife, had been caught in over 200 intimate videos getting passionate with Wanda's long-lost younger sister, who had only been reunited with the family 3 years prior, in bed, in cars, on dining tables, and even on the bay window of Wanda's marital home. They had tried nearly 100 different positions, exploring every depth of connection with unflagging enthusiasm. When she first saw the video, Wanda still believed in him, until a top domestic team examined the footage and told her, "Forensic analysis confirms the video and audio show no signs of manipulation." Wanda felt her heart constrict violently, as if something in her chest had shattered into fragments. She even rushed to his office in complete breakdown, desperate to confront him. Why would he do this to her? Through that frosted glass door, what she saw was Andy holding Violet on his lap, their clothes disheveled, movements frantic. In the heat of passion, he gripped Violet's waist fiercely, his eyes burning with desire, his voice hoarse. "Violet, as long as you stay obediently by my side, I can give you anything in this lifetime except the position of Mrs. Barron." Wanda stood at the doorway, her lower lip bitten until it was raw and bloody. The commotion inside ceased, and with it, her heart sank into complete silence. That day, she threw the wedding ring he had designed himself, along with her last shred of hope, into the trash without a backward glance. On the day she married Andy, she had vowed she would never accept something that had been used by another. If Andy dared betray her, she would vanish from his world without hesitation. Wanda calmed herself, gathered the documents, and returned to her apartment. "As soon as I entered, I saw Andy wearing loungewear and cleaning. Seeing her, he was visibly stunned, then immediately stepped forward to embrace her, full of grievance. "Where have you been? I took the earliest flight back and still didn't see you. Do you know how much I missed you?" He greedily absorbed Wanda's scent. Wanda was the first to notice the unfamiliar scent of cologne on him, and that unfamiliar tie around his neck. "Did you buy this yourself?" In the past, Andy had been intensely possessive. He'd only wear clothes she bought, insisting each outfit had to match something in her wardrobe. He said that way, whenever they stepped out, people would know they were a loving couple. But now, he gently held Wanda's hand as it reached for his tie. "Yes. Only after picking out clothes once do you realize how troublesome it is. I don't want to tire out my precious wife, so I'll handle these things myself from now on." His gaze remained tender as ever. Wanda's eyes, however, uncontrollably drifted to the faint red marks on his neck. Her heart ached as if bleeding. "So, you went to buy it last night?" Her voice trembled, and he completely failed to notice her unusual behavior. "How could I? Last night was obviously for preparing gifts, for my precious wife." He mysteriously produced a gemstone necklace from behind his back, his eyes softening into pools of spring water. "The moment I saw this necklace, I knew it was perfect for you, my love. It'll soon be our 5th wedding anniversary. They say time washes everything away, but I love you so much." Liar. Wanda's throat burned with bitterness. She had seen the receipt for this necklace 5 days ago, yet he had clearly returned last night. Spending the entire night in the next room, tangled in passion with Violet, the tie and the love marks all were left by Violet, yet he was still lying to her. even saying without batting an eye that he loved her. Wanda clenched her palms tightly. Andy couldn't wait to put the necklace around her neck. It looks beautiful indeed. Extremely satisfied, he instinctively moved to plant a kiss on Wanda's lips. Wanda acted as if she hadn't noticed, forcibly suppressing the stinging in her eyes as she took a step back, silently resisting his touch. I've prepared gifts for you too, along with the Christmas presents. I'll give them to you on our anniversary. She tried her best to smile naturally, and he gently pulled her into his embrace, his eyes filled with affection. Darling, how can you be so wonderful that I feel unworthy of you? You must never leave me, I'd surely die without you. Wanda, seeing the hickey on his neck up close, her eyelashes fluttered slightly. Can't live without her. Gazing deeply at that affectionate face, she smiled. 10 more days. Andy, I'm waiting to see you keep this promise. Countdown day 9. Wanda was awakened by Andy's kiss. He was as gentle as ever, holding her with utmost care. Wanda pushed him away abruptly and rushed to the bathroom, vomiting violently. Andy was thoroughly frightened and hurried after her to help soothe her discomfort. How could you be vomiting this badly, honey? Are you feeling terrible? It's all my fault, I didn't notice at all. His eyes reddened with heartache as he picked up his phone to call his assistant and postpone today's product launch. Wanda pressed his hand and shook her head. It's fine, just feeling nauseous, that's all. He could sleep with another woman one night and still hold her the next day, whispering sweet nothings without a hint of guilt. But she had a cleanliness obsession, especially when it came to lips that had kissed someone else before kissing her, and he still couldn't rest easy. He stubbornly insisted on taking her to the hospital, demanding to be present for every single examination, yet Wanda knew his heart was elsewhere. On the phone he kept bowing his head to check. Countless times she'd seen him hunched over his phone replying to messages. Wanda only needed to glance down to see his screen, a transfer record showing 999 yuan, accompanied by a gentle reassurance. Later when we take group photos, I'll have someone position you behind me. You can secretly hold my hand, just pretend this press conference is my appearance for you. Alright. After sending the message, he casually looked up and handed Wanda an opened bottle of mineral water. Darling, drink more water. His smile never wavered. Wanda clutched the water bottle, the icy temperature seeping through the plastic chilling her blood. After leaving the hospital and rushing to the press conference, he visibly grew more agitated. He probably didn't even realize it himself. The moment they stepped out of the car, he released her hand and hurried toward the venue. Wanda had barely gotten out when he was already nearing the entrance. Only at the last moment did he seem to suddenly remember her, turning back with an apologetic smile. Sorry honey, my assistant was rushing me. I didn't realize I was walking so fast. Wanda tightened her grip on the phone. The winter wind stung her face, drying her eyes. She barely held back her tears. The reporters nearby still looked on with envy. Mr. Andy really loves his wife. I still remember when they got married, Mr. Andy said he hoped the most important person in his life would be by his side during his most important moment, and has kept that promise for a full 5 years now. Once, she might have been that most important person in his words, but today, that person could not and would never be her. Wanda said nothing more as mist blurred her vision. As soon as she entered, she spotted Violet behind the crowd. She wore a haute couture gown that accentuated her slender waist. Most striking was the necklace around her neck, nearly identical to the one she wore. Violet clearly noticed her too. The crowd parted as she swayed her wine glass and approached Wanda, smiling the moment she saw her. What a coincidence, sis. Did your husband give you this necklace too? The lights in the venue reflected off her necklace, stabbing Wanda's heart with pain. So even the gifts meant for her were no longer one of a kind. Wanda felt her throat go dry. Not wanting to torment herself any longer, she turned to leave. Violet suddenly changed her expression, her clear eyes reddening in an instant. Sister, are you angry with me? I didn't mean anything by it. I just never thought brother-in-law would give you this ruby necklace. He bought me the sapphire one back then because I thought this color looked too tacky. Had I known you'd be wearing it today, I would never have tried to steal your spotlight. Please don't be mad at me, okay? So it turned out to be something she'd rejected. Wanda's fingers repeatedly clenched and unclenched. At the moment her heart ached to suffocation. She suddenly laughed. Since you've put it that way, then go ahead and take it off, she spoke bluntly, her gaze sweeping over Violet's dress once more. And this dress clashes with mine too. Let's go together. Violet's face stiffened momentarily. Just as she was about to speak, noticing something, she abruptly changed her attitude, raising her hands with reddened eyes. She genuinely seemed ready to strip right then and there. If sister says I shouldn't wear it, then I'll take it off. As long as sister is happy, I'm fine with anything. After all her exaggerated efforts, the necklace around her neck still wouldn't come off. Wanda watched her performance coldly, and when she'd seen enough, she simply stepped in. With one forceful tug, the necklace snapped apart. Violet seemed startled by the sudden action. It hurts. She let out an exaggerated cry, clutching her neck as her eyes instantly reddened. Andy heard the commotion and rushed over, taking in the scene. His face darkened immediately. Who the hell did this? There was a moment of silence at the scene. Wanda only stared at him silently. The necklace in her hand, still warm with lingering heat, pierced her heart like a needle, tormenting her with spasms of pain. No one answered. Andy, his expression growing even darker. I'll ask one more time, who did this? Wanda remained silent, gripping the necklace tighter until her palm turned red from the pressure within moments. Violet, however, felt emboldened, clutching her neck where the nails had scratched her. She stepped forward with tears of grievance streaming down. Brother-in-law, it hurts so much. She deliberately revealed the wound on her neck, her body just a step away from collapsing into Andy's arms. Andy took a step back instead, glaring at her coldly. Did you do this? What? Violet stood frozen in place. Andy glared down at her with chilling disdain. I'll ask just once, did you upset my wife? Violet paled instantly, but she was the one who, apologize. Andy had run out of patience. With an icy sentence, he pinned Violet in place. Her eyes widened. I apologize. On what grounds? Otherwise, he looked at her coolly. No one bullies my wife. You made her unhappy. So naturally, you should apologize. His voice was neither loud nor soft, but everyone in the room could hear it clearly, as if, at this moment, he truly loved Wanda with all his heart. Wanda's eyes burned so intensely they felt ready to burst. The murmurs and pointing from those around kept reaching Violet's ears. In mere moments, she could bear it no longer. Her tears broke free like a dam. Yes, it's me. It's all me. It was my fault for shamelessly wearing the dress you gave me out of pity, and putting on that necklace. I was ungrateful and made sister unhappy. It's all my wrongdoing. I'm sorry for upsetting your beloved. I apologize. I deserve to die. Happy now, brother-in-law, trembling. She tore off her coat and flung it violently to the ground before turning to push through the crowd. Andy didn't change his expression at all. Smiling, he took Wanda's hand and comforted her softly. Don't be upset, honey, I'm here, and I'll never let anyone bully you. He spoke sincerely. If only his other hand hanging by his side wasn't clenched tightly into a fist. If only the smile at the corner of his mouth could appear more natural, less forced. If only she didn't know him so well. As expected, the press conference incident was once again documented by the media. Once the video was leaked, Wanda and Andy's names dominated entertainment headlines for an entire day. The comments from netizens were uniformly filled with envy, calling him the perfect man. Wanda merely glanced indifferently at the man who had returned half an hour ago and immediately went to shower. On the suit pants he had tossed into the laundry basket, there was a conspicuous stain of ambiguous moisture. That was what he had brought back with him half an hour ago. Meanwhile, Violet ostentatiously posted on her social media a set of the latest diamond necklace from brand A, along with a haute couture ball gown. The third accompanying photo showed her reclining in a man's embrace. The caption was equally provocative. Since you've worked so hard to please me both in and out of bed tonight, I'll reluctantly forgive you. After all, I love you more than anyone else could. You'd better keep your promise to spoil me for life. Wanda stared in a daze. Tears welled up in her eyes when a warm, large hand unexpectedly landed on her head. Honey, what are you looking at? Wanda didn't turn around. She wiped away her tears with her fingertips and boldly opened the picture to show him. The hand holding the gift box in the photo was unmistakably the same one now resting on Wanda's head. Andy's face flickered with momentary discomfort, but just for an instant. Then he gently embraced her again, resting his head on her shoulder. Span, this one isn't pretty, it doesn't suit you. Tomorrow I'll take you to the boutique to pick out whatever you want. I'll buy you as many as you desire. Whatever others have, my wife must have too. Span, he's still lying to her, even now. Or does he think she wouldn't recognize the hand she's held for 7 years? Wanda felt her heart ache so intensely she could barely breathe. In the end, she just shook her head bitterly. No need. She pushed him away and burrowed under the covers. Let's sleep. After all, they wouldn't have anything to do with each other much longer. She just wondered, when she truly vanished from his world, would he feel even a flicker of regret for his betrayal? Probably feeling guilty about hurting Violet's feelings during the product launch event. In the following days, Andy started frequently sneaking out after Wanda fell asleep at midnight, always returning before dawn. He thought his actions were flawless, but he forgot this world has something called surveillance cameras. That day, Wanda got up earlier than usual. As she left the room, she bumped right into Andy, who was just coming in covered in dew. "Honey, why are you up so early today?" He pretended he had just returned from working overtime. Wanda glanced at his newly changed clothes and the faint kiss marks on his neck, repeatedly warning herself in her heart, "Don't ask, don't overthink, just a few more days left. Endure these few days, and it'll be over." Calming down, she didn't show even a trace of unnecessary concern. In the end, there was only an utterly indifferent, Andy watched her like this, feeling an inexplicable unease rise in his heart. Back when he worked late nights, she would always frown with visible concern. "Honey, is something wrong?" His brows furrowed slightly. Wanda didn't hide it either. "My stomach hasn't been well lately. I've got a doctor's appointment this morning for a checkup." This was the truth. Andy immediately went on high alert. "Why didn't you tell me you weren't feeling well? Go get ready. I'll go with you later." He was about to go upstairs to change clothes when halfway there, he suddenly received a phone call. Wanda caught sight of the word Violet on the screen with just one glance. Andy hung up the phone without a second thought. Another call followed immediately from the other end. Andy answered irritably, his tone unusually harsh. "My wife isn't feeling well, so you'd better have a good reason for calling." After hearing something from the other end, Andy's expression shifted slightly. He gave her an apologetic smile and stepped aside to take the call. Wanda counted down silently in her heart. At the 7th second, Andy hung up the phone and walked over, his gaze now carrying a hint of helplessness as he looked at her. "There's been some trouble at the company. Honey, I can't go to the hospital with you. I'll have my assistant accompany you instead." Wanda listened quietly until he finished speaking, her eyes never leaving him. Andy was stunned. "What's wrong?" He touched his own face. "Is there something dirty on my face?" "It's not just something dirty on your face." Wanda only felt that the young man who once promised her eternal love had completely become someone she no longer recognized. She never doubted sincerity. She simply forgot that sincerity changes in the blink of an eye. "Go ahead." Her tone remained indifferent. Andy keenly noticed her unusual behavior and was about to say something when another message from Violet popped up on his phone. "Brother, I'm waiting for you. Don't be late." In the end, he left without saying anything, grabbing his coat and heading downstairs without even looking back. Meanwhile, Wanda opened her phone to check the surveillance footage. On the screen was surveillance footage Andy from his recent phone call. Once out of her sight, Andy immediately video-called Violet. At first, impatience was written all over his face. "I warned you this morning to know your limits. Stop trying to drive a wedge between me and my wife, and don't call when I'm with her. If I need you, I'll text you." "Is that so hard to understand?" "I didn't." Violet gazed pitifully at the camera. "I know you love your wife. You don't have to keep reminding me. I'm human too. I feel pain. I feel sadness. I just wanted to share my joy with you first." She pulled her phone back, capturing her still flat abdomen. Wanda felt her heart constrict as she saw the hand resting on that stomach. "Andy, I'm pregnant. I took the test after you left this morning. If you're afraid your wife will find out and don't want it, I'll schedule an abortion this afternoon. I won't make things difficult for you." No wonder he left in such a hurry. So they even had a child together. Wanda lifted her head bitterly, her heart numb with pain. That morning, she still went to the hospital alone. After completing a series of tests, she didn't even react when she got the results. The doctor thought she was overwhelmed with joy and kept congratulating her with a smile. "Congratulations, miss, you're 1 month pregnant." She actually got pregnant at the same time as Violet. Wanda pinched the corner of the test report, an indescribable bitterness piling up in her chest, pressing down on her heart until it ached. Truly, fate plays cruel tricks. The child she had longed for 5 years chose to arrive just as she was about to leave. Wanda was helpless, unable to even cry. Outside the window, leafless withered branches still swayed in the wind. She pulled out Andy's contact information, her fingers hesitating, her heart equally torn. After leaving the doctor's office, a delicate female voice followed. "Did you hear that, brother? The doctor just said our baby is perfectly healthy." Violet, holding the ultrasound report identical to the one in her hand, she was completely bathed in the joy of first-time motherhood. Andy stood right before her, tall in stature and accustomed to being a CEO. He hadn't bowed his head to anyone except her in many years. At this moment, he bent down, his broad palm stroking Violet's flat abdomen gently, smiling with such tenderness. "Take good care of him. This is my first child. When he's born, I'll take him home, give him all my love, and personally raise him to adulthood." He intended to keep that child. intended to raise it himself. Indeed, Andy loves children so much. The second year after marrying her, they began planning the nursery at home. An atheist, yet his walls were covered with New Year paintings of chubby baby figures. He had always longed for a child as delicate as carved jade. Only, at first Andy had hoped for their child together. Wanda stared for a long time, so long that her eyes grew dry and her feet began to go numb. She let out a self-deprecating laugh, tore up the ultrasound report in her hand, and turned back into the doctor's office. "Hello. I'd like to schedule an abortion." That day, Andy didn't come back until midnight. He had been texting Wanda since noon to keep her updated. In the end, she didn't reply to any of his 18 messages. After returning from the hospital, she locked herself in her room to watch movies. Right now, the film was at the part where the female lead returns from a hospital pregnancy test, only to discover her beloved husband and best friend entangled in passion on her marital bed. The female lead in the movie portrayed the agony of betrayal by a loved one to perfection. "You promised to love and cherish me for a lifetime, that's why I agreed to marry you. How could you betray me?" Caught in bed by his wife, the male lead's first instinct was to pull up the sheets to cover his mistress. Wanda, overwhelmed by emotion, bit her lip until it bled. The lights in the room suddenly turned on. The next moment, Wanda saw the scumbag in her eyes replaced by Andy's face. These men just don't know what's good for them. They don't cherish such wonderful wives, and only realize their regret when they lose both their children and wives in the end. Why bother getting angry over them? Wanda stubbornly stared at the man's face on the screen, smiling bitterly. Is this how all men are? No matter how much they love, as time passes, they always forget how deeply they loved at first and can't resist straying. Andy stiffened, he sighed and took her hand again, frowning disapprovingly. "Do you think I would too, honey? When we got married, we promised to walk hand in hand for a lifetime. I won't betray you, never ever." He could lie effortlessly. Wanda lowered her head, tears silently streaming down. "I also said that if you ever betrayed me, I'd make sure you'd never see me again in this lifetime. That's impossible. This time." He didn't hesitate for a second. "I will never let you leave me, wife. I'd go crazy without you. So you must never let me lose you." It was probably because of that conversation before bed, and he couldn't even rest peacefully in his dreams. He kept holding Wanda's hand and calling out wife. He shouted for how long? Wanda watched him for just as long. "If you're so afraid of her leaving, then why couldn't you control yourself? Why did you have to betray her? The sweet nothings you whispered were so moving, yet your actions, how could they be so ugly?" Wanda let out a mocking laugh. In the pitch-black night, after her tears had run dry, she calmly withdrew her hand from his grasp, hugged a pillow, and moved to another room. That night, she dreamed repeatedly, and in her dreams was always the Andy who had loved her deeply in their youth. He would drive from the south to the north of the city in the middle of the night just because she mentioned craving strawberries while running a fever. He would kneel and kowtow at the operating room door until his flesh was torn and bleeding. Praying desperately when her life hung in the balance after a car accident, he would even cut his wrists decisively before her, fearing she might be scared alone after hearing the doctor say she might not make it through the night, thinking of waiting for her on the other side. But dreams always end. His sincerity was no longer hers alone. The next morning, Wanda stepped out the door to see Violet greeting Andy with a radiant smile, as their bodies brushed past each other. Her fingers deliberately and suggestively grazed his palm. The face of the man who deeply loved Wanda in the dream instantly changed. He tightly grasped Violet's hand, pulling her forcefully into his embrace. "Who was the man who brought you here?" Their breaths mingled, pressed impossibly close, unnoticed by anyone. Wanda stood on the second floor, watching everything with perfect clarity. Andy's gaze turned icy. Violet only smiled more radiantly. "What, are you jealous?" She playfully tapped Andy's lips, seeing his expression grow darker by the second. She stood on tiptoe to placate him with a kiss. "Come on, don't be mad. I didn't know him, I just hitched a ride and didn't expect the driver to be so handsome." Before she could finish speaking, Andy pulled her into the corner with reddened eyes. It was probably an action repeated countless times. Both moved with natural ease and familiarity. Andy pinned her roughly against the door, muttered a curse. And then his urgent kisses rained down relentlessly. Wanda watched coldly as his kisses trailed from Violet's lips down to her neck and chest. Violet soon softened her voice. "Brother, be gentle. Don't bite. I was wrong. I won't play around anymore." Andy panted against her shoulder before growling a fierce warning. "Test me again, and I'll end you." Violet wrapped her arms around his neck, her lips brushing his as she smiled even brighter. "What kind of way? Like this?" Her hand moved downward. Andy's expression immediately changed. "Violet, you've got some nerve." Before long, Wanda could hear Violet pleading tearfully for mercy, the sound of water, panting breaths, each moan more suggestive than the last. The window at the end of the corridor stood ajar, letting in the chilly morning wind that filled Wanda's heart with desolation. She clung desperately to the wooden railing, letting her nails splinter and bleed, until their passionate encounter came to an end. Violet walked out with her hair down. Looking up, she met Wanda's gaze. Seeing Wanda, she appeared completely at ease. "Good morning, sis. I'll need to borrow your husband for a while today. He promised to show me around his company." The hand that was about to grasp hers in the hallway froze abruptly, then guiltily withdrew. After what felt like ages, Andy finally entered through the back door. "Honey, why did you wake up so early today? Why not sleep a bit longer?" He was wearing an entirely new set of clothes. The scent of their intimacy still lingered unmistakably. As he approached, Wanda barely suppressed the urge to vomit. Andy smiled and grasped her hand, still playing the role of devoted husband. "How long have you been standing here? Your hands are freezing." Can't tell if it's probing or concern. Wanda lowered her head, concealing the emotions in her eyes, her throat full of bitterness. "Not long. I just came out and saw Violet." Andy's tense body visibly relaxed. He wanted to say more, but Wanda had already turned away. "You still have work. You should go early." "I'll go back to catch some sleep." She was afraid that if he didn't leave soon, she would suffocate, even more afraid that tears would fall shamelessly. Wanda's repeated unusual behavior made Andy's heart inexplicably sink. He always felt something was off and stepped forward to stop her, but the door mercilessly slammed shut. At the same time, downstairs, Violet sent him another message, a brief line, teasing and provocative. "Big brother, I'm still hungry, want more." His eyes darkened as he glanced at the closed door. After much deliberation, he attributed all of Wanda's unusual behavior to morning grumpiness. Finally, he resolutely went downstairs. In the room, Wanda frantically rubbed the hand that Andy had just held, scalding tears falling onto the back of her hand. On the desk, her phone was playing frame by frame the intimate moments Andy and Violet had just shared downstairs. There's still a message from Andy in the notification bar. "Honey, I just booked your favorite hotel for our anniversary. I promised to make it unforgettable for you." After the video finished playing, Wanda swallowed the bitterness in her throat, backed up the surveillance footage, and sent a copy to an unfamiliar account. Only after completing everything did she slowly reply to him, "I'll make sure you remember this for the rest of your life, so look forward to it, Andy." After that day, Andy was practically running around non-stop. Before, he'd at least put on an act, waiting until she fell asleep before leaving, but now he'd grown brazen enough to outright blame it on company business. All his good buddies were covering for him. Everyone praises Andy as the perfect husband, saying he works tirelessly day and night yet never forgets to prepare their wedding anniversary celebrations. No one knows that while they tell Wanda to eagerly anticipate, an unknown number persistently sends her videos of Andy and Violet making love in various places and positions, without pause. Even during pregnancy, there's no denying he's indeed busy. Busy staying by another woman and their unborn child's side, busy delivering his public grain to his lover. After watching the just-received video, Wanda covered her phone expressionlessly. She didn't reply to anyone's messages. Today was the day she had scheduled her abortion. The child she had been longing for 5 years ultimately wasn't meant to be hers. Wanda had spent the whole night mentally preparing herself, but just before leaving for the hospital, she couldn't resist touching her flat belly. "My baby, Mommy failed you." Only the howling wind outside and the chilling emptiness of the room answered her. Last night Andy didn't come home again either. He was with his other lover and child. While Wanda's child was known only to herself from beginning to end, she alone discovered the baby's arrival, and now she's all alone again, sending the baby away. She held back her tears the entire way. Little did she expect to encounter a violent patient incident upon arriving at the maternity ward. A mentally unstable mother who had lost her child was wielding a knife, accusing everyone she saw of stealing her baby. As the woman brandished her knife and lunged toward the crowd, Wanda quietly shifted her steps, gradually moving closer to the staircase. Stepping onto the stairs, she took a deep breath and was about to run downstairs when her hand was suddenly grabbed tightly. Frowning, she turned around and saw Violet wearing a challenging expression. "What a coincidence, sis. The moment I saw you, a question popped into my mind. Tell me, if we were both in danger, Andy would save whom?" Her intention was obvious. The madwoman nearby had already noticed them, her eyes bloodshot as she gripped a knife and charged toward them. Wanda didn't want to engage in this meaningless test with her. She struggled to break free from her grip, desperate to leave. Violet's expression suddenly changed. Clutching her, she turned and wailed, "Brother, save me, save our baby, I'm scared." Wanda only then realized that Andy was also there. Understandable. Violet only came to the hospital either for prenatal checkups or when something was wrong with the baby. Andy cared so much about her and the baby in her womb, how could he not come? But Violet was willing to take the risk. She wasn't. She's already decided to quit. Why must they drag her into it? Hasn't she suffered enough? Wanda struggled even harder. Violet held on to her with hands like iron clamps. Fear still lingered in her eyes, yet her words came out startlingly disjointed. "What are you panicking about, sister? Don't you have faith in your 7-year love, madwoman?" As the deranged woman closed the final steps between them, Andy was also fighting against the crowd rushing towards them. At this moment, the veins on his temples bulged with urgency. Wishing he could grow wings and fly over, Wanda's heart trembled in response. So, Andy's constant fear was for whom? He had said more than once that he wanted to grow old with her, that he could never live without her. What about this moment? Who would he choose? Violet. The answer came instantly. Andy rushed over desperately, immediately pulling Violet into his arms. He didn't even spare Wanda a second glance. Violet let go accordingly. A triumphant smile curled at the corners of her lips. Wanda lost her balance from the momentum, her waist hitting the railing as she tumbled heavily down the stairs. At the moment of impact, Wanda's mind went blank for an instant. Then came countless waves of excruciating pain, radiating from every limb throughout her entire body. Someone was screaming nearby. People were running wildly, and someone had restrained the mentally disturbed mother. Only Wanda lay on the cold floor, warm blood spreading beneath her. Her baby had left so quietly. Without a sound, she gazed desperately at the man silhouetted against the light upstairs. In the past, his heart and eyes were completely filled with wonder, unwilling to let her suffer even the slightest hardship. Now, he held another woman tightly in his arms, trembling with fear. It's all right, I'm here. You and the baby will be fine." He comforted the trembling figure in his arms over and over, his eyes brimming with relief after narrowly escaping disaster, until his gaze lowered. Wanda's last sight before losing consciousness was Andy rushing toward her like a madman. When she opened her eyes again, Wanda felt as if her bones had been shattered and reassembled. Every slight movement brought a wince of pain, with an especially indescribable dragging ache in her lower abdomen. She lay staring blankly at the blinding fluorescent light above her for what felt like ages. After a long while, she finally placed her hand over her lower abdomen. She could feel it. The child inside her was gone. It didn't even wait for her to reach the operating table. It died at the hands of its own father. Yet originally, this child should have been eagerly anticipated by everyone, and could have had a happy, loving family, if it weren't for his father's infidelity. If he hadn't chosen Violet at that time. Wanda's eyes ached until they grew sore, and within moments, tears filled her vision. Resentment and hatred spread through her as she bit her lip hard, trembling with the effort to hold back. Suddenly, her empty hand was clasped by someone. Sorry. Andy had no idea how long he'd been sitting by the bedside. His eyes were bloodshot, and stubble he hadn't seen in ages had sprouted across his jaw. His face twisted in agony as he clutched Wanda's hand, his voice reduced to a broken whisper. "Baby, I'm sorry. So sorry, I didn't mean to. I didn't know you were there, didn't know you were pregnant. How could I have missed grabbing you?" The light in his eyes had completely faded. He was truly remorseful because, due to him, the child they had longed for 5 years was gone. Wanda asked him just one question. "Did you see me when you rushed over?" Andy remained silent. Several times he tried to speak, but no sound came out. Wanda didn't miss the tremor and fear in his pupils. She understood. He didn't recognize her, back then. His eyes and heart were filled with nothing but Violet. She could recognize him with just one hand, but he was no longer the Andy who could spot her in a sea of faces at first glance. But why? They had loved each other so deeply before. How had they come to this? Tears streamed down her cheeks and vanished into the pillow as Wanda's eyes burned red under the fluorescent light, her pounding heart inching toward despair. Andy was still apologizing. The man who once whispered endless sweet nothings now repeated the same few phrases. Yet they carried more sincerity than ever before, but none of it mattered anymore. The final outcome for this child would remain unchanged, just like her future with Andy. It would ultimately become two parallel lines that would never intersect again. From the moment he betrayed her, there was no longer any after for them. But after that, Andy seemed like a completely different person. He put all his work on hold. barely sleeping as he spent every waking moment with Wanda, taking her to different places each day to lift her spirits and make her laugh. During this time, he didn't dare mention their child in front of her, as if by not speaking of it, the tragedy had never occurred. Several times he woke from nightmares, his face filled with terror, and only after confirming that Wanda was still by his side would he relax, holding her close as he drifted back to sleep. It was as if he had returned to being the Andy of old, who loved Wanda more than life itself, but Wanda knew better than anyone. No matter how much the 28-year-old Andy changed, the love he gave her could never again be as pure and clear as it had been when he was 18. Andy might still love her, but it's certainly based on his inability to let go of Violet. The Andy who once loved Wanda wholeheartedly vanished completely on that summer night when Violet appeared. On the second-to-last day, Andy took Wanda out for their usual stroll, as if trying to salvage something. He took her to all the places they'd visited as lovebirds when they first got together. At every place they visited, he would hold her and take an instant photo. He said, "Every year from now on, let's come back to these spots to take photos and check in. When we're old, we'll tell our children these stories and make them envy our love." It was only when she heard these words that Wanda tore off her half of the photo paper, ready to throw it into the trash. Hearing this, her hand paused slightly. Andy once again carefully took her hand in his, gazing at her with an ingratiating yet devout expression. "So darling, we must walk together till that day comes, when we'll tell our love story to our children. You must never let go of my hand, promise." Ever since discovering his infidelity, Wanda would often stare blankly at his face. At first, she never understood, how could he love her while turning his head to play so freely in another woman's bed? To this day, she still doesn't understand. Yet, watching him put away his phone after just replying to Violet, she smiled. "Not good. Andy, I don't want to grow old with you. Don't like you anymore. Don't be your wife anymore. After tomorrow, you can just spend your life with Violet and your child, but I hope after you've seen the surveillance footage at the hospital, you can still accept her so easily." Andy's request ultimately went unanswered. Wanda threw all the torn photo corners into the trash bin. Night fell as the city lights came on. With Christmas approaching, the festive atmosphere on the streets had already grown thick. After finishing dinner at the restaurant, Andy stepped out to take a call. Today, Violet had already called him many times. Andy had been accompanying her these past few days. Violet had been neglected for too long. She must be getting anxious. But really, there was no need, because she was about to leave. Wanda looked at the message on her phone. It was sent by the staff member a minute ago. "MS. Wanda, the flight departure time is confirmed for tomorrow morning at 9. We look forward to seeing you again." Wanda had just replied "see you tomorrow" when she heard Andy's voice coming from behind. "What departure time? Where are you flying to tomorrow? Why didn't you tell me?" Wanda calmly exited the messaging interface, turned around, and looked at the newcomer without changing her expression. "Nothing. Just a friend going on a business trip tomorrow. I wanted to ask her to bring something back for me." She was too calm, and he didn't notice anything unusual. And only then did he feel relieved. Smiling, he took out a freshly bought flower balloon from behind and tied it to her hand. "There's a lot of foot traffic today, with this on. I won't lose you." He flashed her a grin. In a daze, Wanda seemed to see Andy as he was on their first date. It was also Christmas Eve that day. They got separated as soon as they arrived at the square. Andy frantically searched through the crowd with reddened eyes. Later when he found her, he bought a balloon and tied it to her wrist. He said, "This way, I can find you immediately no matter where you go." Same day, same person. This time, Wanda only wanted to vanish completely from his world. After taking that call and returning, Andy also seemed somewhat distracted. "There's still some time before midnight. Honey, where would you like to go? I'll accompany you." The winter wind cut bitterly against her face, yet it paled in comparison to the chill from the person beside her. Wanda looked around and finally fixed her gaze on the Ferris wheel not far away. That one. Back then, Andy had confessed his love to her on that Ferris wheel. She thought, where it began is where it should end. Let it all serve as a full stop to their past. Around Christmas, there always seemed to be particularly many young couples riding the Ferris wheel. Everyone firmly believes in the legend that if you kiss when the Ferris wheel reaches its highest point, you'll stay together forever. Andy believes it too, so after getting the tickets, his smile never faded. "Honey, I've calculated it. When it's our turn, the Ferris wheel will reach its peak right at midnight. Don't you think this means even heaven approves of our love? We're destined to stay together forever." No sooner had he finished speaking than his phone began ringing right on cue. 3 calls came in succession, Andy each time glancing at the screen before hanging up. It wasn't until the fourth call Andy had just hung up when his phone was immediately bombarded with a barrage of text messages. Wanda spotted at first glance the message on the screen from Violet. "Are you abandoning me and our baby? I'm only giving you half an hour. If you're not in front of me by then, I'll jump off with the baby in my belly. From now on, you can spend your whole life with your wife." Finally, there was a bird's-eye view photo of a tall building, terrifying just to look at. Andy's face indeed changed, his hand gripping the phone so tightly it turned white. "Did someone contact you?" Wanda reached out to smooth his wind-tousled hair. Andy suddenly lowered his phone, instinctively avoiding her gaze. Only when realizing her hand was aiming for his hair did he freeze, forcing an apologetic smile. "Saw a bug, sorry." As he spoke, he slightly bent down to position his head beneath Wanda's hand, making it easier for her to adjust. Wanda took a step back and never reached out to him again. "Go ahead, with so many calls, it must be urgent. We don't have to ride this Ferris wheel." She looked at him calmly, as if she had no expectations of him whatsoever. Andy finally realized that somehow, at some point, things between him and Wanda had stopped being like before. She hadn't thrown a tantrum or acted coquettishly with him for a long time. She seemed to have become excessively sensible and considerate. Yet those eyes were too calm, so calm it unsettled him. His sixth sense told him he absolutely must not leave. Actually, not going wouldn't, but Violet's messages kept coming. She was counting down, send him a number every minute, and all his good friends too. Those who used to sweetly call her sister-in-law at first sight were now taking turns persuading Andy. "Won't your heart ache if she really jumps? A human life is at stake. When can't you see your wife? Violet is carrying your child in her womb." So everyone knew, from beginning to end, she alone had been kept in the dark. Wanda couldn't describe the feeling in her heart. Only that the Christmas Eve wind cut bitterly cold, watching Andy's face grow increasingly pale. Just as they were about to board the Ferris wheel, Wanda suddenly turned back with a smile and glanced at him. "This Ferris wheel ride lasts 30 minutes, quite a long time, you know." Andy's expression abruptly changed. Until the staff reminded them to be careful when entering, he seemed to snap back to reality, pulling Wanda out of the line. "Sorry, honey, it's fine, just the expected outcome. That's all." Being disappointed too many times can numb the heart. Wanda took out a booklet and pen from her bag. "Help me sign this before you leave. There's a surprise after you do." This was her final request to him. "I originally wanted to do this on the Ferris wheel, but it seems that's not possible now." Andy was absent-minded and swiftly signed his name on the signature line without even looking. Wanda lowered her head with a light laugh. "You didn't even look. Aren't you afraid I might have made you sign a contract selling yourself into slavery?" Andy didn't care at all. "I'd sign a contract selling my soul, as long as it's from you. Too bad we can't ride the Ferris wheel today. But no worries, we've got plenty of time ahead. Whenever you want to come back, I'll bring you." Wanda pretended not to hear. Only when he was completely out of sight did she take out the booklet he'd signed earlier, peeling off its cover. Inside lay a complete and finalized divorce agreement. Afraid Andy might miss it, Wanda had deliberately placed his copy in the most conspicuous spot on the dining table. Most of their household belongings had already been packed and shipped out earlier. By now, after finishing the last bits, only a single small suitcase remained. She called the staff to confirm the arrival time. Just as she was about to leave, she received Violet's video chat request. Without hesitation, she answered the call and simultaneously turned on her screen recording. On the screen, the man she had recently parted with stood bathed in a beam of light, looking travel-worn. His hair was disheveled, his forehead drenched in sweat, knees bent as he struggled to catch his breath, yet his gaze remained steadfastly fixed toward the camera. Violet sobbed behind the lens, demanding through tears, "Did you ever truly love me?" The words scattered swiftly in the wind, vanishing almost instantly. Andy's eyes, however, reddened. Violet seemed to be sitting high up. Andy remained silent, so she shifted outward another step. "Whether I live or die today depends entirely on you. Andy, I'll ask you one more time, do you love me? Does it matter?" The wind on the rooftop was biting. Andy stepped into the darkness, half his face sinking into shadow. Violet stubbornly nodded instead. "Important. Yes, very important." Wanda rarely agreed with Violet's perspective. No one would want to stay by the side of someone who doesn't love them. That way, the heart aches terribly, the body grows weary. No one can keep loving someone who doesn't love them back. "So, what's your answer?" Violet, no matter how emotionally shattered she was, her gaze never wavered from Andy's phone. Wanda clearly saw his breathing grow increasingly rapid, his hands at his sides repeatedly clenching and unclenching. After what felt like an eternity, he let out a heavy sigh. As if surrendering, just because you said you wanted to see me, I abandoned a multimillion-dollar contract at my company and crossed oceans to return. I didn't go to the office, didn't see my wife. You were the first person I met. You said you dreamed of marrying me, and the very next day, behind my wife's back, I arranged a small wedding to fulfill your wish. 30 minutes ago, because of this ridiculous test of yours, I left my wife alone beneath the Ferris wheel. And now you actually have the nerve to ask me if I love you. Violet, you truly have no conscience. He laughed at himself mockingly. Wanda also laughed along, her eyes turning red from the force of her laughter. So, while he had been professing his love for her, he had secretly done so many things for Violet behind her back. Behind the phone, Violet panicked. How did you know this was a test? Because of spending every day together, and even more because, care, those two words Andy didn't say, Wanda understood perfectly well over the phone. Because we care, we understand, but you still came. Violet was genuinely moved. Andy softened his tone, willingly indulging her. Yeah, I'm here, so, are you still going to test me, or, no more tests? Before he could even finish speaking, Violet had already rushed into his arms. I'm sorry, I'll never play these kinds of tests again. You must be exhausted from running here to see me. I know I was wrong. I'll give you a massage tonight. Please don't be mad at me. Okay, I just love you too much. The phone fell, landing right in front of the two of them. Andy, his eyes still red, pressed down with a domineering kiss. With one hand, he unfastened Violet's collar, grinning wickedly. Whether I'm tired or not, you'll find out soon enough. You're so annoying. Violet shyly tried to pull away, but Andy's kiss followed, landing somewhere even deeper. Amidst the tussle, the phone fell to the ground, the screen went black, but the voice through the receiver grew even clearer. Wanda heard Violet panting, telling Andy to be gentler. Then she heard her own name again. Are you in a hurry to go back tonight? If your sister doesn't see you, will she throw a tantrum? In response to her, Andy let out a light pant before chuckling with certainty. You think everyone is like you. Your sister is much more sensible than you. She just waits obediently at home for me, always where I can see her with a single glance. She loves me dearly and never throws tantrums. What about me? You're more delicate than her, and also, more thrilling to me. Be gentle. The video ends here. Wanda sat on the sofa for a long time. Only when the sun began to rise did she move her numb hands, expressionlessly forwarding the screen recording along with all the evidence of Andy's infidelity she had previously collected, as well as the hospital surveillance footage she had copied, to the programmer she had hired. On our wedding anniversary, Andy arranged for reporters. When everyone arrived, you directly projected all the videos. The message had just been sent when she immediately received Andy's reply. Darling, Merry Christmas. Wishing you happiness and joy this year too. As for my Christmas gift and blessings, wait till I'm back, I'll come collect them personally. Gift, blessings. Wanda smiled. Then this Christmas, may he find joy in divorce. May he seldom find sincerity again. May he and her never cross paths in this lifetime. Stepping out into the Christmas morning sunlight, Wanda discarded her old SIM card, rushed to the airport, and boarded the flight to her future without looking back. A night of madness ensued. As dawn approached, Andy rubbed his throbbing head and crawled out of bed, a soft warmth pressed against his back immediately after. Won't you sleep a little longer? Violet clung to him with delicate persistence, her restless hands still wandering. The next moment Andy pulled away. These days are my wedding anniversary with my wife. Keep quiet and don't cause me any more trouble. I don't have the energy to run back and forth. He got up, dressed himself, made sure there were no obvious flaws on his body, and turned to leave. Violet clenched her teeth and rushed in front of him unwillingly. I just want you to spend time with me, with our baby. I'm not asking for much, and I won't compete with my sister for you. I just wish you could spare a little time for me, that's all. Her eyes reddened as she lowered her head, perfectly balancing tenderness and vulnerability. Andy could no longer maintain his sternness, softening his voice. When will you learn from your sister and stop acting spoiled all the time? Then, don't you like it? Violet lowered her eyes submissively, adopting an extremely deferential posture. Her slender fingers trailed slowly from his neck down to his chest. She parted her lips slightly, about to speak again, when suddenly her body was lifted into the air. After a dizzying whirl, she opened her eyes to find herself Andy pressed firmly against the bed, his weight carefully avoiding her belly. You little temptress, don't tease me when you're carrying our child. Violet defiantly refused to comply. The moment he spoke, she tilted her head up to kiss him, until she'd kissed him until his eyes burned crimson. Lying in his arms, her hands continued their teasing, Anyway, your anniversary is tomorrow. Today's Christmas, just spend it with me, okay? Her fingers traced slow circles on his chest as she spoke, then she took Andy's hand and pressed it against her stomach. Her voice softening further with a coaxing lilt. Both baby and I want you with us. After all, you and sister have so many days ahead together, you'll only spend more time with her. Nevertheless, the words so many days ahead visibly softened Andy's furrowed brow. Yes, he and Wanda would indeed have countless days together. So it didn't matter, he could accompany her for ages yet. He exhaled helplessly. Just this once. With those words, he stood up and took out his phone. Smooth Wanda's words didn't even require conscious thought. He instinctively opened the messaging app to text Wanda, when suddenly he noticed their last exchange still ended with his own unanswered message. Wanda hadn't replied to him in what seemed like ages. This was an unprecedented situation. That hard-to-conceal emotion surged up in his chest again. No, I still have to go back. Bang! Before he could finish speaking, he turned to see Violet standing amidst a pile of broken glass. She seemed utterly terrified. The moment she took a step, a glaring red stream followed beneath her feet, and her eyes instantly welled up with tears. It hurts, she wept pitifully, rooted to the spot, too afraid to move. Andy, his train of thought interrupted. He glanced one last time at his phone screen, sighed, and stepped forward to scoop her up carefully, carrying her horizontally before gently placing her on the bed. While tending to her wounds, he took a moment to call his assistant. Find time today to buy a gift for my wife and deliver it to her. Just tell her I'm away on business and will be back before our anniversary. Over the past 6 months, he'd frequently used such excuses to spend the night at Violet's place. Yet for some reason, this time he felt uneasy, as if he were about to lose something important. The more he thought about it, the more agitated he became. Several times he couldn't control his strength, pressing down until Violet let out a soft whimper. After finally finishing applying the medicine, her eyes were red-rimmed as she tentatively pulled his hand to rest on her belly. Don't overthink it. If you're really upset, just touch the baby. In a few more months, you'll get to meet the little one inside. Violet was guessing. Betting that Andy would soften repeatedly because of the child in her belly. He had been like this many times before, yet strangely, this time Andy's furrowed brow not only failed to relax but grew increasingly tense. Ever since Wanda lost her child, he had repeatedly dreamed of a blood-covered child. Each time the child appeared in his dreams, it wept, crying and asking why he had abandoned it. Every time, it left him speechless. When he stared at Violet's flat abdomen for the 3rd time, his face filled with guilt and despair. Violet could no longer hold back her temper and lashed out. You can't let go of her here. You can't let go of her there. So how come you can let go of me so easily? You'll see her tomorrow anyway. What are you so worried about? Do you really have to make me miserable to be happy? Her eyes were red, as if she had suffered some unbearable injustice, and she fiercely slapped away Andy's hand as it rested on her abdomen. Andy suddenly seemed to snap back to reality. Right, why was he panicking? Wanda had promised to hold his hand for a lifetime. Why was he always scaring himself like this? Anyway, he'd see her tomorrow, with such anticipation. Before dawn the next day, Andy got up and began to wash and dress. Violet wanted to try the same trick to keep him. This time, as soon as her hand touched him, he frowned and pushed her away. I can indulge you once or twice, but you should know when to stop. Today is my wedding anniversary with my wife. No matter how much I spoil you, you should understand that you can never be more important than her. Andy spoke bluntly. Violet instantly turned pale. She clenched her palms tightly, hatred flashing in her eyes, but only for a moment before her face flushed red again, looking utterly pitiful. That's not what I meant. I just wanted to hug you. Andy seemed not to hear. Your perfume is too strong. My wife would notice. With that, he finished tying his tie, picked up his coat, and with the sound of the door closing, the man left resolutely without even turning his head. Violet's face completely fell. With a cold expression, she walked unhurriedly to the wardrobe and took out Andy's custom-made gown. Her fingers rested on the ruby embedded in the gown, her eyes filled with malice. Not as important as her. Then I'll make sure to ruin your wedding anniversary. The snow that fell yesterday hadn't stopped by 9 o'clock this morning. Andy hurried through the snow to the restaurant and immediately began rehearsing without even stopping for water. At 10:20, the reporters and audience he invited gradually took their seats. At 10:35, with 25 minutes left until the event began, his leading lady still hadn't shown up. In fact, still can't reach her. That's right, boss, she's not replying to messages, her phone's turned off. We've tried every method we could think of, but just can't get through to madam. Andy's face had sunk to its ugliest. After 5 years of marriage, this was the first time they couldn't reach Wanda. Andy stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, staring at the snow-covered road below. The barely calmed heart began to stir with unease again. The agreed time had passed, Wanda still hadn't shown up, and the crowd began to grow restless. Everyone was guessing what had happened. With some bold enough to directly ask Andy, Andy calmly reassured the crowd before turning to summon his assistant. Go straight to her house. She hasn't been going out much lately, probably stayed up too late watching movies last night and hasn't woken up yet. Hurry, yes. The assistant was so anxious that sweat beaded across his forehead. In the slightly chaotic scene, no one noticed Violet standing quietly in the corner, her striking red lips curved in irrepressible delight. His absence would be for the best, a few more repetitions, and any man would grow weary. What she wanted was for their relationship to crack, so she could take advantage of the rift. Another half-hour passed. Andy sat in the inner room, and with each passing minute, his anxiety grew stronger. If before he could still comfort himself with the thought that Wanda hadn't woken up yet, by this time, Wanda should have woken up no matter what. She was never one to have irregular sleep patterns. As anxiety peaked, Andy could no longer sit still and grabbed his phone, ready to go look for her himself. A video call notification suddenly popped up. The phone had barely rung for a second when he answered without even looking. Honey, where are you? How come? Boss. The assistant's voice trembled on the other end. Not seeing the person he wanted to meet, Andy frowned in the next moment. The assistant pointed the camera at the table. Madam isn't home. I only found a copy of the divorce agreement at home, signed by both parties. Andy stiffened, his eyes landing on the divorce agreement the assistant mentioned. To convince him, the assistant even flipped to the signature page. The stamped section unmistakably bore his own handwriting. But how could this be possible? How could he possibly sign any divorce agreement? No, it was under the Ferris wheel. He was about to leave when Wanda called out to him. It was that booklet, and he turned deathly pale. Unable to comprehend how things had come to this, it was their wedding anniversary. She should have been waiting joyfully for his surprise. He refused to believe Wanda would divorce him. They loved each other so deeply, and he stood frozen, then grabbed his phone and rushed out to find her. The restaurant's large screen suddenly flickered, followed by heavy male panting mingled with a woman's delicate moans, echoing throughout the dining area. Brother-in-law. What do you think my sister would do if she found out about us? Shut up, if you dare cause trouble in front of your sister. Get the hell out. Tilda brother-in-law. Be gentle. There's a baby in my belly. You're making such noises, yet you still have the nerve to ask me to go easy. Andy, do you love me? Aside from the title of Mrs. Baron, what haven't I given you? Still got the energy to talk? Are you saying I didn't try hard enough? Ambiguous sounds came one after another. Andy turned his head to see two familiar bodies entangled on the screen. Every scene felt hauntingly familiar. The crowd erupted in uproar, buzzing with shock. What is this? Am I seeing right? An affair, Mr. Andy is famously known for cherishing his wife like his own life. Oh my God, I never would have guessed. Mr. Andy was this wild. Isn't that his sister-in-law underneath him? How could he do this? And here I thought he was the perfect gentleman. Truly, appearances can be deceiving. What are you waiting for? This is explosive news. Grab the headline now. At those words, everyone surged forward. The quickest among them had already started live-streaming the entire scene on their phones. With the restaurant security powerless to stop them, Violet watched everything with cold eyes, then turned to a nearby waiter with a satisfied smile. The waiter's expression clearly changed. Just as they opened their mouth to speak, they saw Violet walking confidently toward Andy. Then, halfway through the suggestive video playing overhead, the footage suddenly switched to surveillance footage from a hospital. On the day of the hospital dispute, Violet thought she had everything under control. Little did she know, her every move and word had been captured by a camera hidden in the corner. Her venomous face looked exceptionally ferocious in the frame. Violet halted mid-step. Turning around, she saw the waiter she had bribed shaking his head at her helplessly. The video you gave me, I haven't had time to play it yet. Did you arrange for someone else? It's not him. Then who could it be? Violet's blood ran cold. She looked fearfully at Andy, who was staring right back at her, clearly having overheard her conversation with the waiter. His gaze was now as cold as if he were looking at an object. No, Andy, listen to me. My apologies for occupying public resources. Before she could finish speaking, the images on the large screen changed again. This time, Wanda's face appeared on the screen. She wore a white dress with light makeup, just as Andy had first seen her, speaking slowly and gently. As you all can see, my husband betrayed me by having an affair with my sister. I found out about this half a year ago when someone anonymously sent me a video of my husband's infidelity. The moment I discovered the betrayal, I was devastated and hopeless. So, after 6 months of torment, I finally decided to divorce him. Thank you all for your years of attention and blessings. And I'm sorry this relationship didn't last as everyone hoped, but life must go on. And here, I also want to advise all unmarried women to keep their eyes open when choosing a partner. Finally, I wish everyone peace and happiness. Andy excluded. In the video, Wanda calmly and gently expressed her stance. That familiar indifference became the final blow that shattered Andy's defenses. So it turns out his feeling that Wanda had been acting unusual these past 6 months wasn't just his imagination. It turned out she had been planning to leave for half a year. She had long decided to abandon him. No, it can't be. Wanda wouldn't abandon me. She wouldn't abandon me. Andy completely broke down. He couldn't hear a word of what the people around him were saying. Stubbornly determined to rush out and find Wanda, Violet quickly grabbed hold of him, her entire body frozen in shock. Where do you think you're going at a time like this? Someone's live streaming here, you need to get the news blocked, or we're finished. Things had now spiraled completely out of her control. If this situation continues, the people outside could drown her with just one spit each. Yet the imagined embrace and comfort never came. Her heart sank as she cautiously looked up, only to meet his eyes, cold and merciless beyond measure. From the day you caused Wanda to fall down the stairs, you should have anticipated the consequences. Violet felt her heart clench at the icy chill in his gaze. She wanted to say more, but was violently shoved away by the person in front of her. She sat dazed on the ground, her fingertips icy cold. By the time she realized she should run, reporters had already swarmed around her in retreat. Amidst the chaos of microphones and faces, she let out a desperate scream. Countless cries of Andy echoed out, but the man didn't even turn his head. This incident caused quite a stir. The square's giant screen and pedestrians' phones were all broadcasting live footage of the event that had just occurred. Andy stepped on the gas and sped off, but before he could get far, he was surrounded by reporters who had rushed to the scene. His car was swallowed by the crowd, unable to move an inch. No matter how much he shouted, no one would make way for him. The moment the car window opened, cold microphones and countless interrogations flooded in. Mr. Andy, is everything in the video true? Mr. Andy, was your loving husband persona just an act? Did you ever think about your wife at home when you were cheating with her sister? Mr. Andy, why did you betray your wife and have an affair? Mr. Andy, please speak up. Mr. Andy. Mr. Andy. The accusations came one after another. Andy's eyes turned completely red. The biting winter wind nearly tore his heart apart. He also wanted to ask, why betray Wanda? Why hadn't he noticed all those unusual signs? Why did he lose Wanda? His mind was now completely occupied by that final clip from the big screen. Wanda's eyes were so calm yet resolute, she truly didn't want him anymore. But he couldn't live without Wanda. Without Wanda, he would die, trapped by the crowd. Andy abandoned his car and continued on foot. All along the way, countless people pointed at him, and he dared not stop for even a moment. From dawn till dusk, he searched frantically for someone everywhere, but there was no trace to be found. The house had been emptied out. He couldn't even find a single photo of them together. It wasn't until half a month later that he followed the clues to track down the staff member. He rushed to the office entrance as soon as he got the news, waiting from 2 a.m. until the first employee arrived for work. Spotting the staff member, he clung to them like a lifeline, stumbling forward desperately to grab their hand and immediately began pleading. You were the one who processed my wife's paperwork back then, right? I can't find her flight destination. You must know. Tell me. Just tell me, and I'll give you anything. Money, cars, a house, anything. The staff member was startled by his outburst. The man before him had an unkempt beard, bloodshot eyes, and a disheveled suit. At first glance, he thought he'd encountered a madman, until that face was fully revealed. Recognizing the man instantly, his eyes filled with contempt. Still calling her wife? She's already divorced you, Mr. Andy. You'd better stop with the nonsense. He despised men who cheated the most. No wonder Miss Wanda was so determined to go abroad at the time. She must have wanted to get away from a man like this. As for the location, not to mention he couldn't disclose it due to contractual obligations, but even if he could, he wouldn't tell someone like him. He was so eager when sneaking around, but now that he regrets it, too late. I know nothing, Mr. Andy, please leave. He was true to his word. What he wouldn't say, he wouldn't say. For 7 consecutive days afterward, Andy came every day, but no matter how he asked, the staff would only say, don't know. In the end, They even called the police on him, accusing him of harassment. It seemed like no one wanted him to find Wanda, but he knew he was wrong. He truly knew he was wrong. Countless days and nights later, Andy returned once more to that ice-cold home, now forever devoid of Wanda's presence. He slumped onto the cold floor, downing bottle after bottle of alcohol. It was as if he wanted to exhaust a lifetime's worth of apologies. As he finished the last bottle, he clutched his eyes in agony, when suddenly, through his haze, he heard the sound of a doorbell. The ringing was urgent and rapid. Andy snapped to attention instantly, scrambling frantically toward the door. He had no idea how many times he'd stumbled along the way. His forehead throbbed from colliding with the shoe cabinet. Yet he seemed completely oblivious as he rushed to the door and yanked it open, terrified the person outside might vanish. "Wanda, I knew you wouldn't. Andy, you're finally willing to see me." The cold moonlight of early morning fell upon the woman standing at the doorstep, her disheveled appearance making her look like a madwoman. The moment the door opened, she began to cry. "Andy, are you abandoning me and our baby? You don't reply to my messages or answer my calls. Do you know how much online abuse I've been getting? They're all calling me a shameless homewrecker." Putting on her most pitiful act, she sobbed while moving closer to the man. As expected, the warm embrace never came. A cold gust of wind made her shiver. Violet looked up and met eyes that were chillingly cold. He spoke, his voice laced with ice. "Aren't you, though?" Violet trembled in fear at his demeanor, hesitating before mustering the courage to reach out and clumsily grasp his sleeve. "Andy. What's wrong with you? Don't look at me like that. I'm scared. The baby in my belly will be scared too, baby." Andy let out a scornful laugh, his gaze turning even colder. The look in his eyes seemed capable of slicing her into 1,000 pieces. "You used a charade to make me lose Wanda and our child. And now you have the nerve to talk to me about a baby. The fact that your child is still alive today was bought with the lives of me and Wanda's child. If time could be reversed, I'd rather it was you who fell down the stairs that day." His gaze was colder than winter snow. Violet couldn't bring herself to meet his eyes several times. Yet, she refused to accept defeat. She had struggled so hard to climb up to Andy, to have this child in her belly. She had fought tooth and nail to reach this day. How could she possibly give up now? Violet had reddened eyes and still wanted to reach out to grab Andy's pant leg. "No, Andy, everything I did was because I love you. I was afraid you'd leave me, and I didn't know my sister was pregnant. I never imagined she'd fall down the stairs." Shut up. Andy slammed his fist violently against the door. "You really think I'd still believe you? Don't pretend I don't know who sent those videos to Wanda. Wanda's child couldn't be kept. I see no reason for the one in your belly to remain either. Tomorrow my assistant will take you to the hospital. As for you, get out of my sight. Don't ever let me see you again. Or I swear I won't let you off." Not even a child could soften his heart. Violet was genuinely panicked this time. "No, please, Andy, you can't do this to me." In her terror, she reached out to grab Andy, but before her fingers could brush his clothes, Andy violently shoved her away. Her body suddenly lurched sideways and fell, her abdomen slamming hard against the stone pillar, the pain forcing a sharp gasp from her lips. Within moments, a warm flow began to seep beneath her, accompanied by excruciating pain in her lower abdomen that left Violet deathly pale. "It hurts. I'm in so much pain." "The baby. Andy, save our child." Clutching her stomach in agony, she reached out toward where the man stood. The dim yellow light from the entryway spilled over Andy's indifferent face as he looked down at her, his feet planted firmly without taking a single step. "You know what pain feels like now." Violet shuddered, then heard his cold, mocking laugh. "When you set me and Wanda up at the hospital that day, causing her to fall down the stairs, did you ever stop to think whether it would hurt her to tumble from such a height?" "No, that's not how it was." Violet frantically shook her head, trying to defend herself. Andy had already entered the room. Before the door closed completely, his final words came through, cold and merciless. "You should be grateful I'm restraining myself from killing you. No, don't." Violet collapsed while clutching her phone, desperate to call for help, yet her phone kept receiving incessant harassing calls from unknown numbers. She couldn't find a single moment's pause to dial 120. In her panic, she accidentally answered one, and sharp taunts immediately pierced her ears. "You home-wrecking mistress, aren't you ashamed? And your child, why don't you both just die? Even he must feel ashamed to have a mother like you." Word after word. Violet trembled in pain until the phone slipped from her hand and tumbled down the steps. That night, Violet lost her child amidst countless insults from strangers, along with her last bargaining chip to cling to the Barron family. Inside the house, Andy wasn't doing well either. He stumbled into the bathroom and soaked in a tub of cold water all night. In his muddled state, Andy obsessively believed his wife left him because he'd become unclean, so he had to cleanse himself. The assistant found him in the bathroom the next day, already burning with fever and unconscious. At a glance, his skin was mottled red and purple, not a single patch untouched, his lips still murmuring incessantly, "I've washed everything clean, honey, won't you come back, please don't leave me." The assistant sighed and called the family doctor for him. Just as she was about to leave, his hand clutched hers desperately. "No, honey, don't leave me, I'll really die without you." He gripped tightly, clearly mistaking the assistant for Wanda. The assistant sighed helplessly. Had he known this would happen, why did he act that way? 3 years passed swiftly, fleeting like a white steed glimpsed through a crack. City's General Hospital inpatient department. A woman in a white lab coat, wearing a medical protective mask, stepped out of the building, stretched lazily, and walked toward a man leaning against the door of a Bentley not far away. The exhaustion in her exposed eyes was indescribable. The man handed her a cup of red date health drink and naturally ruffled her hair. "Another new year is coming. Still not planning to go back home this year." "I'm not going back," the woman refused without a second thought. Unscrewing the water bottle and removing her mask, under the warm sunlight, that delicate face was unmistakably Wanda. She tilted her head back to take a sip of water, mustered some strength. Then smiled and counted the person before her. "How dare you ask me? What about you? Your family's phone calls are practically worn out from nagging. Does young Master Lou really plan to put down roots here?" At the mention of this, Clark's face instantly turned ashen. "Don't even bring it up. The moment I go back, my grandma starts shoving women at me. She'd probably have a beauty waiting in my room the same night my plane lands. Hoping to force a shotgun wedding so she can hold a grandchild by the next day. I'd have to be insane to go back." Clark shivered involuntarily as he spoke, clearly traumatized by too many such experiences that left him with a physical aversion, though you can't really blame him. The appearance of Clark's grandma was truly terrifying. Earlier Clark had video called his grandmother from the car. She was sitting in the passenger seat and had barely been in frame for 3 seconds before his grandmother marked her as a target. That very afternoon, she got hold of her phone number and called her, interrogating her about her background and asking for her impression of her grandson, practically pushing her to marry Clark on the spot. After just a few words, she even brought out a family heirloom ready to gift her, nearly scaring her to death. Feeling sorry for Clark for 2 seconds, she offered him another solution. "How about this, find a wife here. Isn't your grandma just worried you won't get married or have kids, leaving her without a grandchild to hold? Just get married to show her. And naturally, you won't have this problem anymore, right?" Clark really doesn't lack in external qualities, and his family background is quite impressive too. In the 3 years she's known him, Wanda has seen plenty of beauties ask for his contact information. Clark just rubbed his head, turned away, and scoffed. "I'd love to, but would you be willing?" "What?" He spoke vaguely, just as someone honked their horn nearby. Wanda didn't catch a single word of it. Clark shook his head vaguely, the ear facing the sun turning cherry red. "It's nothing." He cleared his throat and changed the subject. "I heard a domestic company is planning to introduce newly developed drugs from here. They'll be coming to negotiate the contract in a few days. And the higher-ups specifically assigned you as the translator for this one. You're going to be busy again." Wanda choked halfway through swallowing her water, her eyes widening as she suddenly remembered the matter. "I almost forgot. The afternoon data hasn't come in yet. I asked Susan to pick me up at the airport, but I'm not sure if she made it." She pulled out her phone and found her colleague's number. The call was answered almost instantly, before Wanda could speak. The person on the other end was already bursting with excitement. "Oh my God, what kind of heavenly job is this? Wanda, you have no idea how handsome the boss is. He's a bit cold, but he's so good looking, and I think he's totally your type." Her voice was so loud it might as well have been a megaphone. Wanda heard every single word clearly and exchanged a glance with Clark. The two of them couldn't have looked more exasperated. "When will you ever rein in your fangirl tendencies? Don't believe me, I guarantee you'll love it." Susan was still excitedly trying to describe it to her when she heard someone calling her name nearby. Flustered, she answered the call and, seeing her chance slip away, could only hurriedly say goodbye to Wanda. After hanging up the phone, she turned around and flashed a standard professional smile at the approaching man. "Mr. Andy, if you don't have any issues here, I'll take my leave for now. My colleague will assist you tomorrow. And you can discuss any questions directly when you meet." The well-dressed man in a suit settled onto the sofa. Without even looking up at the sound of her voice, He swiftly scanned the documents handed to him by his assistant, signed them, and immediately moved on to the next one. Susan caught a glimpse of the name on the contract unintentionally. Just one look at the man's flamboyant handwriting left her impressed. Then came the man's name, Andy. Susan. Not long after Susan left, the assistant watched as his boss signed contract after contract and sighed helplessly. Boss, would Madam really be in a place like this? Surely the chances are higher in big cities. Over the years, you've invested in so many useless industries just to find Madam. If this continues. Andy finished signing the contract in his hand and looked up. With just one glance, he instantly silenced the assistant. The words stopped at the lips, but the mind couldn't help but grumble silently. After all these years, if they could be found, they would have been long ago. Besides, the lady left so resolutely back then. Where does the boss get the confidence that finding her would mean bringing her home? The assistant couldn't finish sighing in one breath. Over there. Wanda handed over the workflow to Susan and promptly added the client's WeChat that was forwarded to her. After waiting half the day without receiving approval, she didn't just sit idle. She got into Clark's car and immediately started preparing follow-up tasks. It wasn't until 4 p.m. that the other party finally accepted Wanda's friend request. It was just a simple acceptance, no message followed. Wanda thought for a moment and sent a message to the other side. Hello, I'm Claire, the interpreter accompanying you tomorrow. I'd like to confirm with you again, we've scheduled to meet at 9 a.m. tomorrow at the Wellerton Hotel. Right, about 3 minutes later. The other side casually tossed back a reply. Yeah, Wanda was taken aback, sensing the other person might be busy. Just as she was about to end the conversation, another message came through. My surname is Barron. A surname unseen for 3 years suddenly crashed into view. Wanda flinched reflexively, hastily offering apologies. When changing his contact name, typing that character G still made her heart skip a beat. That meal left me unsettled for the entire night. Only after asking my supervisor and learning that the person was from a northern city in China did my heart finally settle. Andy is from the south. Moreover, the company had never been involved in pharmaceutical design. She let out a long sigh and tried to refocus on her work. But Wanda was clearly not in the right headspace after the afternoon's interruption. After half an hour of tapping away at the documents, she had made almost no progress. Clark came downstairs and saw Wanda slumped over the coffee table clutching her stomach and pulling at her hair. He sighed silently and paused by the sofa. Want some noodles? Wanda waved her hand. It's fine. I was just about to eat too. If you want some, I can make extra for you. Clark had already walked to the kitchen, slowing his pace near the doorway as he waited for the person behind him to change their mind. As expected, Wanda changed her tune. Then thank you, young Master Xie. And could you poach an egg for me while you're at it? She patted her cheeks and threw herself back into work, completely unaware that the person behind her had only cooked a single portion of noodles. Clark had even deliberately let the noodles cool to the perfect temperature before serving, and had even prepared a drink for Wanda. Seeing there was only one bowl, Wanda couldn't help sighing. Where's yours? Finished eating, he lied without batting an eye. Wanda couldn't be bothered to expose him. The warm noodles settled in her stomach, finally easing the dull ache that had plagued her for half the night. Clark stayed downstairs with Wanda until she finished her noodles. With her stomach full, Wanda found her mind even blanker when facing the sea of data on her computer. Guess I'm pulling an all-nighter. She let out a bitter laugh. Clark glanced at her miserable expression, then stood up and went upstairs. When he came back down, he had changed into outdoor clothes, with Wanda's coat draped over his arm. Let's go. Take a walk by the river to clear your head. Wanda didn't move. Do you want your cold to never get better? Come on. The sooner you finish, the sooner you can sleep. Otherwise, with the landlord working diligently here while I'm snoring upstairs, my conscience wouldn't rest easy. Besides, you've dragged me out for midnight riverside walks plenty of times over the years. That much was true. She first became acquainted with Clark because of a house. At that time, she had just arrived in City S and, planning to settle there long term, decided to buy a place. Back then, Clark lived right across from her. However, their interactions were limited to the occasional morning and evening greetings as neighbors. They only exchanged contact information later when Clark was cut off financially by his grandmother for not returning home and got evicted by his landlord for failing to pay rent. That night when she couldn't sleep and went for a walk by the river, she saw Clark hugging his suitcase and curled up in a corner looking pitiful at her doorstep. Out of kindness, she thought of letting him stay just for one night. Never did she expect that at dawn the next day, he'd straight up ask if she needed a tenant. Wanda initially wanted to refuse. At that time she only knew Clark was the young master of the Xie family enterprise back home. After separating from Andy, she hadn't planned to maintain much contact with these rich young masters, but later, stalkers started appearing frequently in the neighborhood. For safety's sake, she nodded in agreement. In the end, she ended up staying for 3 years. During this time, Clark was unbelievably good to her as her landlord. He acted as both babysitter and chauffeur. In his words, this was called repaying a kindness. Later, when he learned she liked going to the riverside at night to relieve stress from insomnia, he joined her little ritual, calling himself her bodyguard. Of course, tonight was no exception. Wanda, seeing his insistence, she had no choice but to take the coat and go out with him. When they arrived by the river, the area was already quiet. With only the occasional passerby. While parking, they got stuck behind a car that was starting to move. Wanda found it quite unusual. After all these years, this is the first time I've seen anyone here at this hour. Clark had only half listened when he looked up to see a car heading straight toward them from across the street. Without time to think, he instinctively pulled the person in front of him into his arms. Their bodies pressed together, and 2 seconds later, they froze simultaneously. What's wrong? Wanda looked up in astonishment from his embrace. Their eyes met. Clark's face instantly flushed crimson. No, there's a car. Wanda licked her parched lips as Clark's heartbeat thundered in her ears. Seeing his face turn crimson, she took a step back and was the first to descend the stairs. Let's go. Clark remained frozen in place, only belatedly touching his head after what felt like ages, silently cursing himself for being so useless. Little did he know. Inside the car that had just driven off, Andy's eyes were already red from that fleeting glance. Stop the car. The assistant looked troubled. Boss, there are surveillance cameras here. Illegal parking will. Just park the damn car. Andy had veins bulging at his temples, completely consumed by frenzied emotion. The assistant complied and pulled over. Before the car even came to a complete stop, Andy had already flung open the door and rushed out. He had just seen a profile in the rearview mirror that looked almost identical to his Wanda. There was no mistake. That was his Wanda. It was the woman he had loved for so many years, the one more precious to him than his own life. Wanda. He braced against the cold wind, not even wearing his coat. Watching the two figures ahead draw closer, his heart nearly leaped out of his throat. Wanda, Wanda, Wanda. His blood was boiling. Only one final step remained, unable to restrain himself any longer. He reached out and grabbed the dark-haired girl among them. His fingertips trembled from suppression. Wanda, the 2 syllables stuck at the corner of her lips. Before they could escape her mouth, the other person turned their back first, yet it was a completely unfamiliar face. The stranger seemed thoroughly startled, their expression turning pale with fright. It wasn't until confirming that Andy meant no harm, though the other party looked furious. Spewing a torrent of harsh words in languages Andy couldn't understand, Andy acted as if he hadn't heard, lowering his hand in despair, the light in his eyes completely gone. It was only when the assistant rushed over, repeatedly apologizing in English, that the other party gave up on calling the police and walked away. The assistant sighed wearily. Boss, what were you trying to do? Andy staggered back 2 steps, catching a glimpse of a pure white car out of the corner of his eye. His heart trembled as hope reignited within him. Was this car here just now too? The assistant was drowsy to the point of delirium. Casually glancing at Andy's mentioned car, he mumbled indistinctly, probably. Actually, he wasn't entirely sure either. But experience told him exactly which words would stop his boss from going off the rails at this very moment. As expected, Andy's back slumped again. Is that so? Another illusion. Andy curled his lips self-deprecatingly. The suppressed longing in his heart surged violently at this moment, threatening to swallow him whole. Tears welled up in his eyes as he turned around helplessly, scanning his surroundings. Yet in the next second, his gaze swiftly locked onto a camel-colored figure standing below the steps. Wanda. His pupils trembled violently. This time, he couldn't possibly be mistaken. He stepped forward without a second thought, completely unaware that he was standing on a slope. One misstep sent him tumbling down, and pain instantly flooded his entire body. The assistant turned around, her heart leaping into her throat. Boss. Wanda walked under the streetlight with her hands in her pockets. A gust of wind lifted the hair at her temples, and she turned her head as if sensing something. What met their eyes was nothing but darkness. Clark stopped with her and turned back. What's wrong? Wanda had already turned around. Nothing. Just now, I thought I heard someone calling. But it must have been my imagination. Otherwise, how could she possibly hear Andy's voice here? Before going to bed at night, Wanda set 6 alarms in a row, fearing she wouldn't wake up the next day. As expected, the unexpected still happened. When she crawled out of bed and saw the clock strike 8:30, Wanda felt like her world had collapsed. After 10 minutes of freshening up, she grabbed the documents and headed downstairs. Just as she was about to change shoes, she saw Clark sauntering over to her with a bag of breakfast. She took a moment to greet him. "You're heading out too?" Clark didn't even turn his head, just wondering if you'd oversleep, and sure enough, you didn't get up. Wanda almost burst into tears. "I've been too busy lately." She's juggling 3 projects simultaneously, basically working around the clock. "So I told you, you should really talk to your supervisor about this. Even workhorses are human beings." He let out a sigh and smoothly pulled the car up to the entrance. Wanda was just about to walk around him when Clark rolled down the window. "Get in." Wanda was still dazed. Clark glanced at the time again. "You have 15 minutes left. If you hurry, you shouldn't be late." "Thank you, young master." Wanda acted faster than she could think. When she came to her senses, the car had already traveled far away. She was still clutching Clark's bread in her hand. She even felt somewhat at peace, as if this was exactly how things should be. But she couldn't resist stealing a glance at the person beside her. Clark didn't turn his head but accurately caught her movement. "What? Nothing." Wanda withdrew her gaze and took another bite of bread. After a long while, she managed to squeeze out another sentence. "Thank you. Thank you for 3 years of uninterrupted care." Clark remained silent. He timed it perfectly to drop the person off at the hotel building. Just as he was about to ask her what time she'd finish, he turned his head and saw Wanda already dashing upstairs, leaving behind a contract page on the passenger seat. Who knows which folder she'd pulled it from? Clark couldn't help but break into a cold sweat. After parking the car and holding that contract page, he walked into the lobby and decisively called Wanda's boss. "Reduce Wanda's workload. See what happens if you dump so many tasks on her again." Poor Wanda's supervisor, clutching the rejected project, hadn't even had time to take a smoke break before getting scolded by the young master again. Meanwhile, Wanda rushed straight into the elevator. After making sure she wouldn't be late, she relaxed and adjusted her breathing, assuming her best professional posture. As the elevator doors slowly opened, a standard work-appropriate smile had already formed on her lips. This continued all the way to the hotel entrance. After knocking on the door 3 times in succession without receiving a response, she couldn't help but frown, lowering her head to double-check the room number on her phone. Just as I was about to knock for the 4th time, a man's confused voice suddenly came from behind me. "Miss Claire." His voice still carried the slight hoarseness of early morning. Wanda's smile froze abruptly at the corners of her lips. Not receiving a response, the person behind spoke again with a lowered tone. "Hello." Another call followed. Wanda clenched the contract in her fist until her knuckles turned white. Until she heard footsteps approaching, Wanda took a deep breath, unclenched her fist, and forced a professional smile before turning around. "Mr. Andy, hello. I'll be your interpreter for this meeting. I'm Claire, this time." It was Andy's turn to freeze in place. Early spring light streamed in through the window. Even in winter, cities never got too cold. And by spring temperatures rarely dropped below 10 degrees Celsius. Yet at this moment, the hotel corridor felt terrifyingly cold. After 3 years apart, that face remained exactly as remembered. The only differences were the turbulent emotions surging like tides in his eyes, and several fresh scratches on his face. Andy had bloodshot eyes. His breathing grew labored. Now nothing and no one else existed in his vision, yet Wanda's eyes still held the same unchanged smile. She continued to gaze at him indifferently, as if looking at a complete stranger. "Mr. Andy, the contract has been drafted. You may review it first." She maintained an entirely businesslike demeanor. Andy couldn't process a single word. He rushed to Wanda and grabbed her hand tightly, afraid she would vanish if he let go. "Wanda, do you know how long I've been searching for you?" 3 years, every single day I've looked for you." Sorry Mr. Andy, I'm here today to discuss business matters." She took a step back, trying to free her arm from the man's grasp. Andy stubbornly refused to let go. "We can talk. All my money is yours. If you want, I'll sign the contract right now." "Wanda, just give me a chance. Don't look at me like that. Don't treat me like a stranger." "Okay, I can't stand it. I'll go crazy. I'm begging you. Give me a chance. Let's talk this through properly." Andy, standing over 6 feet tall, now loomed before Wanda like a child who'd done wrong, eyes brimming with tears. Unable to lift his head, "I'm begging you, Wanda." His voice was completely hoarse, his words incoherent as they spilled out, and his grip on Wanda's hand was so tight it seemed he might crush her bones. "Mr. Andy, Let me say it again, I'm here today strictly for business matters. Also, please release my hand. Wanda suppressed her disgust, struggling to maintain a composed expression. Andy seemed incapable of understanding human speech. Not only did he not let go, his grip only tightened further. I won't let go, Wanda. I'll never let go of your hand again in this lifetime. These 3 years without you have been worse than death. Wanda, let's talk properly. I know I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. I'm begging you, forgive me just this once. He was reduced to near pleading. Wanda only felt disgust. Mr. Andy, wife, don't call me that, we're husband and wife. He said it as if it were the most natural thing in the world. As though he'd completely forgotten about the divorce papers he'd signed himself. Wanda's patience was visibly running thin. She swallowed her anger again and again. When the tension reached its peak, she was just about to speak when the elevator doors suddenly opened nearby. A figure stepped out, almost instinctively. Wanda raised a smile and greeted the person behind Andy. Darling, over here. Her expression changed too quickly. Seeing that long-lost smile, Andy's mind went blank for a moment. Clark had already reacted, swiftly walking to Wanda's side and naturally wrapping an arm around her waist, smiling insincerely as he stared at Andy's hand tightly gripping Wanda's arm. How much longer does this gentleman plan to keep holding on? It was clear that Wanda's term of endearment and that smile weren't meant for Andy. Once this realization took root in his heart, it quickly grew into thickets of thorns that tightly wrapped around Andy's heart. Seeing the intimate and natural demeanor of the two people before him, he felt momentarily suffocated. Honey, who is he? Wanda smiled as she took the hand of the person beside her, her expression shifting from its previous aloofness to one brimming with happiness. Let me introduce you. This is my husband, Clark. Impossible. A metallic sweetness rose to his throat as Andy desperately wanted to pull Wanda into his arms. Honey, stop joking with me. You're my wife, I'm your husband. He kept crying out wife repeatedly in despair. Wanda could no longer contain her temper, no matter how patient she usually was. Mr. Andy, if your memory fails you, I can show you that signed divorce agreement again. I don't believe it. Clark had imagined too many possibilities. He could accept Wanda hating him, resenting him, even hitting him, but the one thing he couldn't bear was Wanda not loving him. This was far more painful than killing him. Honey, stop playing around. I know you're still mad at me. I've truly realized my mistake. I've already taken care of Violet. I'll never do such things again. If you still don't feel secure, we'll find a lawyer. As soon as we get back, I'll transfer all my assets to you. Darling, let's go home, please. He forced a smile uglier than tears and tried to reach for Wanda's hand. Clark seized the moment to block his path, looking down at him with icy contempt. Mr. Andy, do you take me for dead? Calling another man's wife darling at every turn, is this the upbringing of the Barron family? What are you, anyway, when I'm speaking to my wife, who gave you the right to bark like a dog? Andy was trembling all over. Honey, let's go home. He cautiously looked at Clark's Wanda behind him. The next second, what met his gaze was a pair of utterly indifferent eyes. Let me say it again, I'm not your wife, Mr. Andy, stop calling me that, we're already divorced. As for Clark, she raised her hand tightly clasped with Clark, smiling cruelly. He's my husband. If even he doesn't qualify, then you, Mr. Andy, certainly don't qualify either. As for the contract issue, I don't think our future discussions will go smoothly. To avoid wasting your time, I'll request a replacement after I return. Goodbye. After finishing her businesslike remarks, she didn't even glance at Andy, pulling Clark away immediately. Andy had just thought to chase after them when a sharp pain exploded in his head. He endured it stubbornly, but after just a few steps, his body lost control and he collapsed heavily to the ground. In the very last second before consciousness faded, he saw Wanda turn her head at the sound. She merely turned her head, even seeing him collapse. After watching, she indifferently turned away again. Those eyes that once brimmed with overflowing love at the sight of him no longer held his reflection. After entering the elevator, Wanda never let go of Clark's hand. Along the way, Clark could feel Wanda's hand tightening continuously. She walked faster and faster, nearly rushing onto the road when Clark pulled her back just in time. This way, Wanda responded with a muffled hum, her mood clearly off. She didn't speak. Clark didn't ask further, only when they reached the car. Clark was about to get in. Wanda remained oblivious, still holding his hand without letting go. Noticing he had stopped moving, she finally asked in a muffled voice, "What's wrong?" Clark shook his head gently, saying softly, "Nothing, just standing with you for a while." Wanda wasn't the type to isolate herself when facing problems, This was something Clark had noticed long ago. Wanda spoke with a slightly stuffy nose. I want to go home, as she finished speaking. Wanda started moving toward the passenger seat before realizing she'd been holding his hand all along. I'm sorry, she frowned and relaxed. Clark still smiled gently. It's all right. He helped Wanda open the car door, watched her get in, and then took the driver's seat. Throughout the journey, Wanda was unusually quiet. Until, arriving home, just before getting out of the car, Wanda suddenly blurted out an apology to Clark without any context. Clark hadn't yet processed what happened. Wanda then offered a wordy explanation. I just used you without your permission earlier. No big deal. Clark still wore that same indifferent expression. You can use it as many times as you want afterwards. From beginning to end, he never asked Wanda Andy's identity. Wanda said nothing more, entered the door and immediately became absorbed in her work again, apart from briefly discussing the personnel change with her supervisor. She seemed to quickly revert to her former workaholic self, the kind who would forget to eat and sleep once immersed in her tasks. But Clark knew she was unhappy, deeply unhappy. Her palms were red from being clenched all day, yet he asked nothing. He only went out before lunch to buy an exquisite little cake, then stocked up on a pile of candies. Wanda stepped out of the shower and pushed open the door, only to see a mountain of candies piled up before her, along with an unsigned card resting atop the candy heap. When in a bad mood, sweets are the remedy, you said so yourself. Wanda carefully carried each piece of candy back to her room. One by one, she locked herself in the room for the entire afternoon, until the sky darkened at the horizon. She suddenly flung open the door, colliding squarely with Clark, who had been hesitating outside for ages. I just wanted to ask if you'd like to. Clark, come running with me, huh? Wanda changed too quickly. Clark hadn't processed it yet when she was already downstairs. Going for a run? You coming? No, wait up. Clark hurriedly chased after her. Bewildered, he followed her in running a full circle around the river. By the time they stopped, his face had turned deathly pale. Wanda also collapsed onto the haystack. After sweating profusely, her mood seemed to suddenly brighten. Thank you. She turned her gaze to the man beside her. Clark wanted to say he was fine. But the moment he opened his mouth, a fit of coughing erupted. After thinking for a long time, he pitifully made a request. No need for thanks. Just, could you not be so sudden next time? After speaking, he felt it wasn't quite right and shook his head again. Forget it, run if you want. As long as you're happy, I'll try harder to exercise more so I won't pant like this in the future. He said it with utter seriousness. Wanda couldn't help but be amused by him. On the way back, Wanda's mood noticeably improved. She even broke precedent by sharing the secret that had weighed on her heart for 3 years with Clark. Unexpectedly, she felt immensely relieved after speaking it out. Clark, however, darkened his expression. Scum, he gritted his teeth in secret. When he looked up again, the very scum he had just cursed stood not far across from him. Damn it, Andy stood there for who knows how long. Seeing Wanda return, he forced a smile and stepped forward, only to falter silently when he noticed Clark standing beside her. Their eyes remained locked for a long moment. His smile looked more painful than tears. Wanda, can we talk? Clark looked furious. Are you deaf? What could my wife possibly have to say to you? Andy acted as if he hadn't heard. He stubbornly kept his eyes fixed on Wanda, waiting only for her response. Wanda remained silent for a long time. When the wind rose, she forced a faint smile. My husband said we have nothing to discuss, Mr. Andy. We're already divorced. I hope you won't harass me anymore, or I'll call the police. She spoke with grave seriousness. Andy's strained expression twitched, the redness around his eyes deepening. Wanda, I truly know I was wrong. These 3 years without you, I've lived in constant agony. My heart can't take much more. Wanda, I'm in pain. Such terrible pain. He pointed to his heart, his voice dripping with anguish. Wanda finally glanced at him. Does it hurt? How much does it hurt? It's like being sliced to death. Wanda, it's the despair of pain so unbearable you wish for death. His fingers trembled as he reached out to take her hand. Wanda laughingly dodged away. It hurts, and that's good. How could a betrayer live so easily? How could she be the only one to suffer? Andy was caught off guard, staring at Wanda in shock. Wanda, let's not do this, okay? You never used to talk to me like this. You haven't come home for so long. Please don't treat me this way. Let's stop torturing each other. Alright, Wanda almost laughed hearing this. She didn't know what gave him the wrong impression. I thought I'd made myself clear enough, Mr. Andy. We ended things 3 years ago. You've been written out of my life's script, understand? Instead of with me here, you'd better go home and comfort your Violet. Your child must be learning to talk by now. Come to think of it, I'm technically that child's aunt, though we'll probably never meet in this lifetime. So, no gift from me, okay," she spoke casually, yet her cold eyes held not a trace of warmth. Andy seemed utterly distraught. "There was no child, Wanda. She killed our child. How could I have let her give birth to that baby? The year you went abroad, she already had a miscarriage. For these past 3 years, I haven't had any contact with her." Panicked, he tried to step forward and grab Wanda. Clark, already immersed in his role, coldly blocked his path and pulled Wanda away without looking back, walking far into the distance. After that night, Wanda had completely moved on emotionally, but Andy seemed to be under a spell. He began waiting outside Wanda's apartment every day. Wanda ignored him, blocked all his contacts, so he started sending her flowers and food. He was frantically showing Wanda, wanting her to know that even after 3 years, he had never forgotten her preferences. But it was meaningless now. From the moment he betrayed her and climbed into bed with her own younger sister, their future had been destined to crumble. Wanda coldly stared at the garbage bin outside, now overflowing with flowers. Fresh flowers piled upon withered ones, day after day, until that day, Wanda finally turned around in exasperation. "If you're really that idle, go show some concern for Violet. She loved you faithfully for 3 whole years, she's still begging you online to take her back." This matter was something Wanda had accidentally discovered just days ago when logging into her domestic account. An account untouched for 3 years greeted her with 99+ unread messages the moment she logged in. The top few posts were all videos tagging her under content posted by a user named Waiting for Andy to Turn Around. She couldn't resist clicking in for a look. There she saw thousands of posts, nearly every single one saying, "Will I see Andy today?" She'd kept this up for 3 whole years. Such devotion was truly touching. Wanda sincerely suggested Andy take a good look back at Violet, hoping the scumbag and the cheap woman would stay locked together to save her the trouble. But Andy clearly misunderstood her intention. After leaving her apartment that day, Wanda received a text from an unknown number the very next morning. "Wanda, I'll bring her to explain in front of you. I'll prove with actions that there's nothing between her and me." Almost on the same day, she received a call from an unknown number. Adhering to her principle of not answering unfamiliar calls unless they rang 3 times consecutively, Wanda hesitantly answered when the caller dialed for the 4th time. What followed was a familiar roar from the other end. "Wanda, how could you be so vicious? I'm your own sister after all. How could you treat me like this? I just fell for someone. What's wrong with that?" Violet's call came out of nowhere. Wanda was completely baffled at first, but eventually managed to extract a few key words from her sister's furious rant, finally understanding what she meant. Andy had found her and brought her to City S, wanting her to personally tell Wanda that Andy and she had never been involved during these 3 years. This approach is truly incredibly stupid. Wanda couldn't be bothered to listen to her cursing, hung up the phone and blocked the number for good measure. Not in the mood to Andy's games, she stayed in the office building all day without returning home. She endured until evening, and surprisingly, her phone didn't receive a single ill-timed call or message. After that, many days passed in succession. Andy was so quiet, it was as if he had completely vanished from her world. However, his absence Wanda found rather agreeable. In the days that followed, she gradually returned to her former rhythm of life. Whether there's something to do or not, take a walk by the river with Clark. That day, Clark's grandmother chased him all the way to Mulberry City, afraid that Clark would be tied up by his grandmother and thrown onto some beauty's bed. She even kindly played the role of his girlfriend for a while. At first, his grandmother didn't believe it, until she confirmed they had truly lived and eaten together for 3 years, and witnessed so many natural and familiar interactions between them. His grandmother was so excited that she slipped the family heirloom jade bracelet onto Wanda's wrist that very night. This kind of life lasted for nearly a month, so long that Wanda had almost forgotten Andy had ever briefly appeared in her life when Andy's assistant found her. At first, he couldn't break the habit and kept calling her madam whenever he spoke. It wasn't until Wanda corrected him for the 3rd time that he let out a bitter laugh, as if resigning himself to fate. "Miss Wanda, our CEO had an incident a while ago. He's preparing to return to the country now, and before leaving, he wanted to leave you something, as compensation." He spoke vaguely. It was at this moment Wanda learned that on the day Andy brought Violet over, she had fallen from the building. Rumors say it happened during an argument with Violet, accidentally falling from the 3rd floor. The assistant didn't specify how severe his injuries were, only mentioning that Violet hit her head during the fall and became vegetative. Wanda thought that if he could reflect this deeply, he was probably dying, but when she saw him at the hospital, She felt he probably wasn't seriously injured after all. Otherwise, how could he have the strength to stare at her for so long? Wanda had taken time off work to come. Clark was still waiting downstairs for her, and she wanted to make this quick. Your assistant said you want to compensate me, so how do you plan to make it up? With money, or a house or car? In these 3 years away, Wanda has become much more pragmatic. At the very least, only a fool would refuse money. Especially when it's voluntarily given by an ex-husband. No one ever complains about having too much money, probably because Wanda's reaction was too calm, and he couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. Your mindset is impressive. What else should I do? You want me to wallow in self-pity and cry every day? Wanda said bluntly. You're the one who betrayed me. The one who should be suffering isn't me. Yeah, so, I guess this is all just karma. Andy gazed bitterly out the window. It had only been a month since they last met, yet he seemed to have aged more than just a little. But that wasn't Wanda's concern. So, what are you giving me? Can you hurry up? I'm in a rush. He truly was in a hurry. Clark just texted her saying his grandma is making a surprise visit, so she'll have to go back with him later. Wanda didn't hesitate to reach her hand out toward Andy. Andy had something perilously close to spilling from his eyes. Can't you stay just a little longer? No. Wanda's patience was wearing thin. Later I still have to go back with Clark to see his grandmother. Do you have the heart to keep an old lady waiting? Emotional blackmail. Who couldn't do that? As time ticked by, Andy seemed crushed by her words. He shut his eyes painfully, tears welling up at the corners before disappearing into the pillow. His fingers trembled, but in the end, he didn't rise, only pointed to the nightstand. When we divorced, you didn't take much with you. This time, I had a lawyer calculate all my assets. Consider this, my compensation. His throat quivered as if bearing immense pain. After a long pause, he forced out another sentence. Leave. Wanda picked up the contract without moving, merely frowning at the damp spot on the bedsheet. Did you spill water? Andy froze, his handsome face contorted with humiliation and distress. He covered his eyes and called his assistant in from outside the door. Wanda didn't move. Andy's tears completely overflowed, spilling through his fingers. Wanda, stop looking at me. Just go. I'm begging you. Leave, and don't ever come back. Wanda walked blankly to the door. Behind her, several nurses passed by, clicking their tongues and shaking their heads. With such a handsome face, how could he end up quadriplegic? Wanda was stunned, then heard another cold laugh. What's the use of being handsome? I saw him online. He betrayed his wife by cheating with her younger sister. People like him deserve to fall to their death. After learning about this, Wanda couldn't quite describe what she felt, because she no longer loved him. And if she were honest, there wasn't much hatred left either. Andy now seemed no different from a complete stranger in her eyes. When she left the hospital, Clark was still waiting downstairs. They carried on as usual. She didn't speak, and he asked nothing. But after meeting Clark's grandmother that afternoon, he seemed thoroughly uneasy. On the way back, he agonized the entire journey. Upon arriving home, he finally blurted out, "How about, we come clean to Grandma? She's already started pushing us to get married. I'm really afraid she might drug us unexpectedly someday." He mumbled those 2 words incoherently, his face turning an embarrassing shade of red. Wanda actually considered it seriously. Actually, that might not be a bad idea, right? I also think we can't just, wait, what? What do you mean not a bad idea? Clark was momentarily taken aback. Wanda just smiled and shook the jade bracelet on her wrist. I'm saying, giving it a try with you wouldn't be impossible. Wanda never lacked the courage to start over, nor would she ever lose her ability to love just because she'd stumbled in romance before. Over these 3 years with Clark, she wasn't blind to his virtues, so she wanted to give herself a chance, and by extension, give Clark one too. Besides, the second marriage paired with a first, by any calculation, she stood to gain without losing a thing. That night, Clark was so happy he nearly missed his step and fell off the car. After barely steadying himself, he scooped up Wanda and rushed into the house. At the last moment before the door closed, Wanda's bottom line remained unchanged. If you dare betray me, I'll walk away without looking back. Clark didn't hesitate for a second. Don't worry. Our family has strict moral principles. We've been hopeless romantics since my great-grandfather's generation. If I dared wrong you, you wouldn't even need to lift a finger. My grandma would finish me off herself. As for what comes after, we haven't gotten there yet. Who knows? Anyway, Wanda's life can only get better from here. There's absolutely no way it could get worse. The end.